Welcome to Families in Faith. We continue with our look into Bible stories that one would find in Sunday school classes or children's Bibles. Remember, these are designed to give you a little extra information and connections around the story so that you can read them with your children and provide bonus thoughts and help connect the dots. God's story isn't about one character or one instance in time, but an ongoing story of love and redemption as God works to restore His creation from the fall of man. So after the creation account, we get right into the fall of man. Adam and Eve showed up at the end of the first chapter in Genesis, the peak of creation, created in the image of God, set apart above all creation. And before we can even get into what that might look like, in Genesis chapter 3, Adam and Eve sin. The story in children's Bibles and Sunday school classes focuses on the Garden of Eden with its amazing produce and God's command to eat freely, with one exception: do not eat from the tree of knowledge. Then the snake convinces Eve that God didn't really mean it, and then Eve eats it and gives some to Adam and he eats. The first sin, followed by the results of sin. The story about the fall of man gives us the stark contrast between life without sin and life after sin. Before sin, man walked and talked with God. There was no shame and no death. We know this because there was a tree of life that was only forbidden after the fall. Death, it seems, was not part of God's creation, but a direct result of sin. After they sinned, Adam and Eve felt shame and guilt. They hid from God. Next came the first excuse. Adam says, "The woman you gave me made me do it," followed by the second excuse. Eve says, "The serpent made me do it." And excuses have been flying out of man's mouth ever since. Next comes the consequences of sin. Women will have painful childbirth. Men will have to work to produce their food. And weeds have popped up. And everyone will die. And here is where we get to God's love and how this all connects to God's great story. As soon as man sins, God starts working His plan of redemption. In Genesis 3:15, God makes His first promise of a Savior. This is where Jesus became known as the second Adam, for out of woman's offspring will come one who crushes Satan. From here, God kicks Adam and Eve out of the garden, refuses to let them eat from the tree of life, so they will eventually die, and man begins his life separated from God by sin, constantly searching for ways to overcome sin but failing, and God constantly forgiving His people and working to draw them back. This original sin marks all people, born from that point on. Everyone is born with the taint of sin that separates us from God. Everyone is in need of a Savior, and God so loved His creation that He would stop at nothing to redeem them from sin, including sending His only Son to die in our place, so that we might live with Him in heaven. What a story! It's God's story of salvation. What a gift to give to our children.